Okay, so what we've got here are some objects. Really, it's better to have an odd number of objects, but today I have an even number of objects. Just, I'm sure someone will give me hell about it later, but you guys won't because you won't know the difference. So I've got the light set up and I've got a background. You can see right there my background is a dark, I try to make dark space behind. If you have a bunch of noise behind the, yeah, right. Um, or was I? Oh, you want to make it, you want to make space behind your objects because you're trying to make three-dimensional objects on a two-dimensional surface. You want to see it in 3D. And everybody wants to do 3D, but you have to understand 3D before you can do 3D. So one of the tricks about learning to draw is it helps you to visualize things in 3D. In addition to that, it'll enhance your creativity. It'll win you friends and influence people and make your hair grow back. I don't know, all kinds of things. So set up your still life and make sure you have a handful of sharp pencils, which I'm getting out right now. So first thing we're going to do is sighting with task 1. I'm going to do both tasks real quick. When you do your setup, please take a picture of your still life, and you can do it with your cell phone if you want, because what I'm seeing right now is not exactly what the live cam is showing you. It's a little bit off of that. So let's get to the camera here. Okay. So you want to make sure that wherever you're sitting, that's what you're seeing. And what I like to do, so this is a little bit too low. It should be even with my eye. And what I like to do is kind of zoom in on the objects with my smartphone so you can see I'm using my smartphone. And if you put your finger in the middle of it and hold it, it goes AF lock, which means that it is actually locking the amount of light and dark. So it's a more realistic, or at least a better, or at least different. But it's definitely from my point of view. So let me make sure I get it from my point of view. You shouldn't be able to see the still life at all when you're taking a picture of it. And once you get a picture of it, you can send that to me along with your assignment, and that'll be great. I can't require you to do it, but I strongly recommend it. So I'm going to upload this to the, drop it. I love iPhones. Now remember, you also can set up your iPhone or your smartphone. You can actually set it up as a webcam and show me how your drawing is set up. You can do the OBS thing. There's a video in the resources where you can set up your OBS to do the same thing. So now I'm going to add that image here that I just took a picture of it so that you can see exactly what I am seeing. My Wacom tablet just died yesterday. Now I think my mouse is about to die. Doesn't that just figure? So nice. Life is so nice. I am having all kinds of issues. You have no idea. But it keeps life interesting, keeps me off the streets. So, who needs a social life? I got my art. That's all I need, right? So I haven't had a social life in so long. I don't know what one's like anyway. So now you can see this is the still life from my point of view, and it's a little better in perspective. I am kind of looking down at it a little bit, so if I want to be absolutely honest, the camera is still distorting it a little bit compared to reality. So it's super important that you draw from life. And if only practice, even if you're only practicing, sometimes you have to use photographs because you can't get to the place that you really want to draw, or you can't you can't draw a hummingbird because they won't hold still or whatever. But if you draw from life enough, then you'll eventually learn how to compensate for photographs that don't show you the truth, because photographs are dirty, rotten liars. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my still life. You should, and this is not actually in the directions, but I always teach it this way. You should have a viewfinder. You should just make one. Just have two pieces of old mat board. You can use your viewfinder to set your boundaries on your drawing. And that's really useful because maybe you decide you don't want to draw all those objects. Maybe I decide I only want to draw the cup and the ball, which I think I might do. And I'm going to cut out most of the pyramid. No, I'll leave the pyramid in there. All right, so I'm not going to crop out anything, but I can see how much space the objects take up within my little world. So if I trim down this photograph to the same size as as what I can see, that would make the most sense. So I'm going to crop the top rather, to 300. Yep. So I'm bringing in the edges, and this is what I did with my little viewfinder too. Oh, a little bit more, because I don't want to see the top of the board in there. Okay, so that's a little closer to what I was getting, more like that when I viewfind it. So you can kind of see that about half of it is the box, and about half of it is if I do a square format. And if this helps to do it like this, then definitely do this. And then quickly, gesturally, remember the gesture drawings that we did last time? I know they're a big pain in the butt because if they're loose and they don't look like a whole lot, but learning how to draw rapidly and accurately is going to be such an amazing bonus. It's going to be so nice. And don't have to do too much in the way of details, so keep it light. I'm not using Vine charcoal this time. You can use Vine charcoal, certainly, because then you can rub it off. I'm just using it really light with just a regular 6B charcoal pencil. And not even trying. Well, then you need, it doesn't matter. Nobody starts out being good at it. I wasn't good at it either. You have to do it. You just have to keep doing it. Push yourself to do it. Give yourself a timer, 15-second timer, or try to draw stuff that moves, even if it's moving slowly. You have to do it. No, it's okay. It's hard, but I tell people, yes, art is actually hard, and they're always surprised when they start to learn to draw or try to learn to draw, and 90% of them will give up. That's why most people aren't artists. But the ones that stick with it, it's hard. If it wasn't hard, then everyone would do it, and no one would get paid for it. So if you want to get paid lots of money for doing this kind of thing, you're going to have to be damn good at it, because there's always going to be somebody standing in line behind you ready to take your job and do it for half the cost, twice as fast. Just saying. So it makes a lot more sense to practice. If you don't do it well, then that's what you should focus on. Focus on doing your gestures and do them quick. Do them again and again and again and again. Yes, it's boring. Yes, it can be really boring. So make it fun. Make it a challenge. Make it a game with yourself or something. So I sketched this out really quickly, and talking at the same time, which is like juggling 3 balls. So, which I can't do. Now I'm going to cite it. You should always, even after you are an amazing artist, because all of you will eventually end up being amazing artists, right? Even after you become amazing artists, I still recommend doing this every so often. It's sort of like doing a reality check, or like when you have to renew your driver's license after 20 years. Maybe you ought to go over the rules of the road one more time because you think you know them all, but maybe you don't. So even when I am drawing for myself and I just sketch stuff out, I'll go back and check it. And this is what the citing does. So I'm going to cite for myself, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like by using my camera. So I like to always lock your elbow. Make sure that your elbow is locked. Your arm is the same distance. Close one eye because you want to get rid of that binocular vision. And you should have your pencil should be vertical to your eye, or if you're holding it that way, whichever way you're holding it, it's got to be straight, flat to your face. All right, don't tilt it away from you or towards you. So I'm going to measure the ball, and just for kicks, I'm going to turn my hand, holding the pencil in the same position, and measure it across, just to make sure it's a sphere, because it is a sphere. It's the same height as it is wide. And so I'm going to take that measurement on that ball, and I'm going to say, how many balls width heights do I need to get to the top of the box? Turns out it's 1. That's cool. So I'm going to go to the top of the box now. And oh, this is the way I love this still life, the setup, these objects, because the cup is also 1 ball high. How convenient. So I'm going to turn my pencil sideways and just take a look. The cup is also a hair over a ball wide. And the distance from the ball to the corner of the box is 1 ball. And the distance from the corner of the box to the left side is a little bit more than 1 ball. And I have to move this. The front end of the box, if I measure it from the bottom corner to 3, all the way to the back of the box. Okay, so what I measured was this measurement here, and then I measured it to the top of this box, and then I measured to the cup, and then I measured the width of the cup, which was a little bit more than 1 ball, and then I went back and measured this, and I got 3 balls out of that too. And then I went and measured from the ball to the here, and then from here to here, here. So what I got, I'm pretty close, not as close as I usually am. I made the box a little tall. If you're having problems making something spherical like this, try turning your paper upside down. You should turn the paper upside down every so often anyway, just to check yourself. So the ball is like, if you're working on a scale, say you're making a drawing, this is a new analogy that I just came up with recently, I hope it works. Say you're looking at a map, and your map is a scale of 1 inch equals 1,000 miles. So for every inch, you know that that is actually 1,000 miles. It doesn't really matter what size the inch is. It could be a centimeter. It could be a quadingle-dong. It doesn't matter. It's just a unit. It's a unit of measure that represents a different unit, a bigger unit of measure, but still it's a 1-to-1 ratio. In other words, I make it, this one is going to be my 1,000 miles, but out there it's really 1,000 miles. I hope that makes sense. So if I want to draw 3,000 miles, the United States, for example, 3,000 miles, it's going to be 3 inches across. And that will make the United States in proportions, 3 inches across and 2 inches high, because it's 3,000 miles across and 2,000 miles high, or whatever. I don't know what the longitude and latitude is. That's what I'm trying to get across. So this equals 1 unit. And you can just call it, if you want to, base unit is kind of misleading because it makes it sound like it's the bottom of something, but it's not. It's just the first one. It's the one we're going to build on. Everything within my drawing is going to be measured. Yes, you can pick anything to be a base unit. I strongly recommend picking something that is not too small and not too big. Because if it's too big, then you have to do everything else in fractions, and if it's too small, then you have to do a million of them, and that's no fun either. After you get it laid out with some basic, once you drew one, and then you draw something else based on that one, and then you can move and take that something else to base it off something else. But you better make sure that your first one's accurate, or it's going to throw the whole thing off. So my 1 unit here, I go up 1 unit here, and I get there's the top edge of the box. 1 more unit up here, and that should meet top of the, I'm going to check it again because I'm not really sure because my board is a little bit in the way. So 1 unit ball, 1 unit to the corner, 1 unit goes to the top of the cup, but right at the point. Imagine you have a grid in front of your eyes the whole time you're doing this. And if you really want to and you're really having a lot of trouble, take a piece of old picture glass, like an old picture frame, take the back off of it, and draw a grid in Sharpie on it, and hold the grid up, and just look at how different the units, how many units are different things, because it's all in relationship. If you push it you put it this far away, your units will get bigger on the object, but they're still going to be in relationship 3 units to 3 units to, I don't know if that's just making you more confused or not. Anyway, so I measured I measured this up 1, 2, 3. I measure 1 unit from the ball, edge of the ball, to the corner of the block. Another ball unit takes me almost to the edge, and then a little bit more. I'm just going to guesstimate at that. Going to check. I checked. This was 3 units from here. So this was 1, 2, 3. Although how that works, I'm not really sure. How did that work? Because this is 1, 2, 3. So I have to do that again. Whatever you do, whenever you start the measure, make sure that you recapture your initial image. Okay, so that does make sense because it comes to the bottom of the cup and then it comes to the top edge of the cup. Whereas this is a little bit higher. It comes to the corner, which is higher on the horizontal. So the distance from here to here is the same as from here to here, and it's the same from here to here. But this is also the same distance as this, and the same distance from here to here and here to here. And if you were to draw a grid across, you could see how these things offset each other slightly. I hope that makes sense. So this is in front. This is the closest thing to us. And you can hold your pencil up straight level with your eyes and do that too. And you can see it stacks. This is the first one. This is the second one into space. This is sticking out, so this is actually coming a little bit pretty much even with the bottom, but it's also got a point on it, so that's why it could stick out in front of this ball. There was one person in class who drew a cylinder like so, and then the cylinder behind it was like this. And it was like, that's floating. That doesn't work. The other cylinder would have to be like this. It's behind it. It has to give it space. You have to give it space behind it. All right, so now I'm going to show you in the camera what I was doing with my pencil. So there's the first ball unit. Put the pencil at the top of the ball and your thumbnail at the bottom. Then I move my hand up without changing the distance from my eyes or from the camera. I move my hand up. There's the second unit, goes right to the corner of the box right there. See it? The third unit goes right from the corner of the box to the top of the cup, right where it meets, just above where it meets the handle. I rotate my hand without tilting the pencil towards me or away from me and not moving my hand any closer or further. You can see it is a sphere because it's the same width as it is high. One more out to the side. It's a slightly different angle than what we have on the photograph, so that makes sense. It should be a little bit shorter because it's looking at it from a little bit to my left. So the optical distance of the right side is slightly less because it's turned more away from the camera than it is from my eye. So that makes total sense. It should be a little bit further to the edge of the box, and then the side of the box is going to be even further. It's more like 1 1/4, a little bit more than 1 1/4, whereas this is just barely 1 and maybe 1/8 from this point of view, from my own eyeballs. So it is a subjective thing, but everything that you're looking at is subjective. Everything is subjective. Reality is subjective. My reality is not your reality. So you need to draw your reality, but it has to fall within the rules that everybody agrees on, like how things move in space and how far away things are. Once you learn the rules, then of course you can break them as much as you want. So just learn how to drive first, and then we can go on the racetrack, okay? So another thing that I tend to look for when sighting. So when you do your sighting, this is the sighting. This is 1 base unit right here, 1 base unit for this object, the ball. The ball is my base unit. Then I have 3 base units from here to here. And I measured that. I measured 1 ball here. The base unit on my paper is not the exact measurement of the base unit on my sight. It's a relative measurement. This measurement on my sight is this tall, but that means nothing because I could put my hand closer or further away from it, or tilt the pencil, or stand up and measure it. It would become different. It's only good from this point of view. So 1 base unit of the ball, and it makes it 3 base units up the side of the box. to the top front of the cup. So I measured it from here, 1 unit, 2 units goes to the bottom of the cup, third unit goes to the front end of the cup. So this distance from here to here, the difference in the distance from the bottom of the box to the bottom of the ball, from this point of view now, remember it's always from your point of view, is the same amount of distance as between this and this right here. Because overall, if I have a longer measure, and you can do this to check it again, once you get that established, you could take something larger and say, okay, well, I want to see if the measurement from that I measured of 3 balls high to the middle of the cup top is the same as the 3 I measured from the front of the box to the front lip of the box of the cup. Once you've established your first initial line, you can use larger measures to square things up. But first, start with a small one. And I was pretty close. I really was pretty close, so that's good. So that's my reality check. You might find that, especially if you're having a really hard time getting the perspective of something, like the top of the box. Everybody always sees more of the top of the box than they realize. They think they're seeing more of the top of the box than they actually are. So you may draw the box like, oh, I know that the top of the box is this big and the side of the box is this big. Why doesn't that look like the box? Well, because you're not seeing the top of the box from the top angle. You're seeing it from a oblique angle. So the top of this box from here to approximately there, because it disappears behind, is going to be one size. It'll be different. If I stand up, it's going to be bigger. If I go lower, it's going to get smaller. So that's all perspective. If you haven't taken perspective yet, you'll find that out. So let me see what we've got with that. And as my pencil gets shorter, things have to change too. So I would say 2 across. It's about 2 balls across from corner to corner, from this corner. Ooh, I'm a little off. I'm going to have to see where that's wrong. Oh, that's wrong because, and I know exactly where it's wrong, and I know why. Because the distance between this line here and this line here needs to be bigger. That negative space, you can measure the negative space even just visually and see that it has a certain shape to it. You can draw that random abstract shape because it isn't anything in particular, whereas your brain is telling you that's a cup, that's a cup, that's a cup, it's got a handle, it's a cup. But that space is nothing. The space is just an abstract space. So I thought the corner was here, and when I took my two balls measure across, it wasn't coming to here where it should have. Then I realized that, well, this line is off, so it's got to be to there, and then it comes to there, and that's correct. And then it's just a tiny bit over to the other corner. And these corners, line up your pencil in front of your eye like this and level it out. See how those corners are right across from each other? You can see how the tip of the pyramid and the ball are level with each other, but the little tip of the box is lower, and the other bit of the box in the back is higher. All these higher is relative too. It's all on a grid, as if you had a grid across your face. So there's actually proof that Renaissance artists played with this idea. It's a little bit longer than that. Played with this idea. So this would be like 2 1/8. This space from here to here, and this space from here to here is 1 cup, 1 high, and we could measure the height of the pyramid as well. Or I can take this measurement, which is 2 ball highs, 2 high balls, 2 balls high, from the bottom of the cup to the top front of the edge of the box. It's hard to talk about this stuff. And I could say, I could measure that instead and see how many of those fit in the pyramid. 1, 2. So if 2 of these fit in the pyramid, 1, 2, then, and this is actually 2 balls, then by that analogy, we know that this is 4 balls high, 4 base units high, right? Does that make sense? Did I just put everybody to sleep? Okay. Oh, well, tell me what is scary. I'll tell you what the apprehension is. I know exactly what it is. It's your left brain afraid of losing control, of not being in charge. This is not something you can do with your left brain. Mhm. Mhm. So this goes back to that great book that everyone should read, and I wish it was part of the curriculum. It's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, and it discusses how we have 2 modes of thinking: a left brain mode of thinking, which is very rapid, going from point A to point B as quickly as possible in a straight line, and the other one is very you can't even talk about it because it's not verbal; it's nonverbal. So the logical side of the brain is verbal. We can explain things with words and with concepts that are logical and make a lot of sense, and they're mathematical and they're quick and they're symbolic, and you can take that idea and you can put it in this little cubby hole and take that idea and put it in this little cubby hole. Everybody knows I can say, what is that? That's an eyeball. But does it really look like an eyeball? Well, no, but it's a symbol for an eyeball. And this is a cup with a handle. Is that cup? No, not that particular cup, because that particular cup has a lot more stuff going on in it than this does. But this is left brain thinking. This is your left brain thinking, and the left brain controls the right side of the body. And so most people are right-handed, and it also names everything with the right. This is right. This is correct. This is good. This is 2 wrongs don't make a right, and all kinds of stuff. You think about the way the language is even used. It can see how the poor right brain, which is nonverbal, nonlinear, and non-temporal, it doesn't have a concept of time even. It's just morphing around in this space. It's like moving in an amorphic. It's very much like actually did my thesis when I was in graduate school on video games and myth, and I need to scan it and make it available if anybody wants to read it. It's super dry. It's a research paper. You have to do a research paper when you go to graduate school. And I took the idea of the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain and the different modes of thinking and the different ways that artists have to access the right side of the brain in order to create that illusion of space. It's a fooling the eye. It's a trick of the eye. The right brain can get it, but the left brain just wants to cut it into little pieces, into little shapes. So I took the analogy of video games or the hero's journey is a male myth, where I took Odysseus as the example of the masculine hero's journey, had to go from Troy, where the war was, back home. And all along the way, he had to conquer, he had to, succeed in overcoming all of these tasks and challenges, just like a video game. A video game, most of the time, you start with a quest, and if there's a whole specific formula for the quest. It's like there's the call. You'll learn this in storytelling. There's the call. There's the, do you acknowledge the call, or sometimes it's the return of the father. It's something that triggers the person to go on this adventure, this quest. Because if it doesn't have a point, the story doesn't have a plot, it's not going to be an interesting story to most people. So Odysseus had to go from the war back home to his wife Penelope. And along the way, he had to face the sirens. If you know anything about mythology, they would lure men to their deaths. So all those men had to stop their ears with wax, and he tied himself to the mast so that he could experience this thing. But he succeeded, and they passed the sirens. So he got past the sirens. Then he came to the island where Circe was, and she was a witch. And there was also a cyclops there. So all this great stuff that everybody knows about from D&D all started out with, 3,000 years ago with Greeks. and maybe even further ago than that. But that's a very male myth. So going from point A to point B with some tasks that you have to complete to go to the next level. Well, what's Penelope doing? Penelope is sitting here at home trying to keep it together. Yes, she's sitting. No, she's sitting at home waiting for her husband to come back from the war. And all these other rich men in the country are coming saying, "Oh, just marry me and I will take care of you and your marvelous tracts of land." Just like, "I'll take care of you, don't worry. A woman like you shouldn't be alone. Your husband's dead, certainly." But she didn't think he was dead. She kept saying, "Oh, no, 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 wait, just no, wait, wait." And so finally she said, "Well, I tell you, let me just weave my husband's burial shroud and grieve him properly. And once I weave his shroud and we give him a proper burial, then I'll know he's dead and I'll choose a new husband." So every day for 3 years, she wove during the day, and at night she unraveled it. And all day long she would weave, and all night long she would unravel it until they caught her at it. That's a very feminine myth. It's process. It's all about being in the process, in the moment, not the goal, not where you were from, not where you're going, but just doing. That's right brain thinking. So that's why I tell people, if you don't like to draw, if you don't like to do this kind of stuff, you're probably not going to like the job either. You're not going to like where you're going because you're going to be required to do stuff that this teaches you how to do. So I compared that to the masculine and the feminine myth, the two parts of the gender identity in a way, and also taking that back to the thesis idea, the idea of the reinterpretation of the hero's journey through video games at the time was back at the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, where video games were just really starting to catch people's attention. And they were almost all made by boys, for themselves, with the masculine myth in mind. Set goals and accomplishments and achieving to get to a certain desired point. Somebody clever. Now, Mario is one of the greatest games of all time, right? Everybody still loves Mario in all of its many permutations. One of the key things that I thought I saw in Mario was the combination of the male and the female myth, the masculine and the feminine, the left brain and the right brain. Because you could go through the Mario game as a hero to, jump on all the turtles and catch all the stars and get to the goal and rescue Princess, right? That's the goal. Or you could just kind of travel around. You could back it up. You can go the different way. You can go an alternate route. You can go exploring. You can find different things. And you may never, ever rescue the princess, but it didn't matter because you're still having fun because you're still doing stuff. You're exploring. And that's a very feminine myth. Another game that's, I think, is the actual epitome of this whole thing that was designed, I'm sure, by both genders and cross age. That crosses age and gender. That's the holy grail of video game, right? You want to make a game that old and young and girls and boys and moms and dads and everybody would like and play. And then you tap into this untapped market. Well, I don't know if you can set out to do that. I think you have to do it by accident. I think the people who designed Mario did it by accident. Another game that's very similar to that I really loved and I had to stop playing because it was one of the few games I actually played was Warcraft. Because even though you had to achieve certain things and rise up in rank and to get stronger, more powers and all that other stuff, it gave you plenty of opportunity to just explore, to just have a good time and not even achieve anything, but just play and talk with your friends. And I always like to be the herbalist and just gather up herbs, and it was fun doing that. So the point that I'm trying to make, making a long story even longer, and if anybody's still watching this video at this point, congratulations, is that the left brain wants to very rapidly make all the decisions and move on to the next thing. The right brain wants to look at the whole, the gestalt of it, to get into it and move around inside of it. So the rapid sketching, it just occurs to me, the rapid sketching is a combination of those two things. It's a way of forcing and that's why it's so hard that could be why it's so hard for you, because it's making both sides of the brain work together, play nice with each other. The left brain is noting the objects and their position in space, on the horizontal and vertical space, and the right brain is moving those spaces in between. The left brain's going quickly, but the right brain is calculating in a three-dimensional space. That's the way that I think. And making them both work together. If you don't like sketching fast, it's because your right brain isn't able to keep up and your left brain won't slow down. And so the sketches come out fast, and then they and you get frustrated. To be confronted with the fact that the right brain's going to have to give up, or the right brain's going to have a little control now, and the left brain's going to have to give up some of that control, can actually cause people physical pain. I've seen it happen. There's one of the other exercises that we do where we do the blind contour, and I really encourage you not to look at the paper at all. The idea is that you're going to get so involved with going so slowly around the contours of your hand into and out of all the little cracks and crevices, just get down into infinity, because that gives you access to the right side of the brain, because the left brain gets bored and goes to sleep. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's been 2 hours and you've just been into this. It's like being on acid in a way, I guess. The right brain is kind of an acid trip. So, try it. It is, because you see things in a totally different way. You get down to the minute details, whereas the left brain just wants to make big decisions quickly. Okay. So that is that for the sighting. It shouldn't be quite this messy, and you should have clearly labeled that this is your base unit and this is 3 units high. I want to see measurements going up and down, and I want to see how many base units across objects are, and I want to see how many base units are in between the spaces. Maybe even make a line like this and say, okay, how many base units from the top of the cup to the top of the pyramid? Figure that one out. Triangulation is another great sighting technique. Once you learn how to do this on inanimate objects, and you learn to do it quickly, like now I can look at that and sketch it out and pretty much get the proportions right. That's how you can draw the figure, because the figure is just a bunch of shapes, and you're just trying to get the proportions of the figure right. And if you don't, the left brain knows, but it doesn't know why. So then you get this whole thing like, well, it looks wrong, but I don't know why. And because we're so hardwired to see humans and faces in particular, you can draw a perfect eye and a perfect nose and a perfect mouth, and it won't look like the person, and you can't figure out why, because you did all the pieces right, but the pieces aren't right in relationship to each other. Even a millifraction, just a millispace away, eyes too far apart, it looks wrong, and too close together it looks wrong, or the mouth is a little off center. But unless you know what to look for, how to measure it to correct yourself, you won't be able to get an accurate likeness. It's really hard to get a likeness because it has to be so incredibly spot on. And not everything just sits there and holds still. So I've been wondering a lot lately how people did portraits so amazing before they had cameras, because people don't hold still that long. And I'm beginning to wonder if maybe they thought or had a memory that was more three-dimensional, maybe like a slow memory sort of thing, where you could actually visualize it. Like Tesla apparently could visualize inventions in his head in 3D and turn them around and look at them and tell if they were going to work or not. Some people's brains maybe work better like that. It's really hard, but interesting concept. Kind of makes you tired after a while. I do get tired doing this stuff. Okay, so one more thing I want to show you about the sighting technique that you should add to your repertoire. Besides the relative measurements, this unit equals that unit, but these 2 units aren't the same size. This is for this, and this is for that. But there's this many this many that. Is angles. If you're having a hard time, especially, for instance, the top of the box was a big problem. Like I said, if you're told to draw a cube and you don't know how to draw a cube, you might think, oh, a cube has 6 sides, right? So that means that it's got to have 6 sides, but I can't get all 6 sides on the paper. It doesn't look like a cube. Well, you don't see all 6 sides, and you certainly don't see all 6 sides straight on. You see them at different angles, and that's where perspective comes in. So if you're trying to draw this cube that's in front of me right now, and you're having a hard time with the top, and the top's looking like this, which is usually what happens, and you do your measurement, maybe measure the top of the cube, and then measure how many tops fit across the front. So I know that I measured one measurement here, from here to here is 2, 1, 2, from here to here. So that kind of forces that shape into the squashness that it needs to be in order to look illusionistically three-dimensional. So it forces it down by measuring it. You can do that with the sides too, because you may think the sides are this long and this long, but you might only see a tiny sliver of the side. That's one of the hardest things to get, is when the box is shaped like this, or even if it's shaped like this, but getting that small sliver. This is the same distance as this in 3 dimensions, but not optically. So you can hold your pencil up to the angle of the side that you're looking for, like the top of the box angle, and then pull that down to your paper and see if you've got the angle right. So I'm actually in the camera holding my pencil to line up with the edge of that box, and then trying to take that line straight down to my paper. And that can show you almost immediately where something is off. So like the back end of the pyramid, angled like that, bring it down to here, and then I know that the angle of the pyramid is like this. The one in front is almost straight, but slightly cocked to the left. Turning it upside down can help you see it too. If it doesn't look right upside down, it's not going to look right side up either. So that can help you fix it. Looking at it in a mirror is really good. Looking at it in different ways. Walking away from it, coming back to it. I recommend doing that to anything that you're drawing. Always walk away, come back to it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or a day later, and you'll see everything that's wrong with it. It's super important with the boxes to remember that all parallel lines converge on a vanishing point. They never meet actually, but they appear to meet on the horizon. That is what perspective is all about. The big discovery of perspective in the 1500s revolutionized the way people made art, because they could then make something look like it was really moving away into the distance, even though it was flat. So double check your boxes and your platforms, the things that it's sitting on, and make sure that anything that's supposed to be parallel is actually moving towards convergence in the space, on the drawing, even if it's not doing it in reality. I hope that made sense. Okay. Any other questions? I think I got it. I might try to get somebody to edit this down and make more sense out of it.